Tapestry weaves together the threads of our struggles and doubts, curiosities, our faith, our joys and hopes to create meaningful conversations that matter. You know those late night conversations that go unexpectedly deep? That's what we want to capture with the Tapestry podcast. And we want everyone to jump in the conversation. Because when we are heard and valued, we can begin to believe we are loved. Welcome to the Tapestry podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Tapestry podcast. We have been addressing the question, won't you be my neighbor? It's kind of like almost a plea, a request. We've been talking about kind of what is a neighbor. We've been talking about why we feel so disconnected now from people who we might have felt like were neighbors in the past, or maybe generations before us were, how they were connected. And throughout, we've been talking about the spiritual and faith implications. And in this episode, this kind of wrap-up episode of this question, we're going to focus a little bit more heavily on the kind of faith and spiritual implications of what it means to be a neighbor and how we can be neighbors for each other. We wrapped up the previous episode with this idea of some of the things that have been driving our disconnection seem to be also the things that turn us inward in a self-centered kind of way. And to me, that seems like an anti-spiritual or at least anti-connectional kind of force. And as I've been thinking about those ideas, I think there's at the risk of driving this conversation a little bit too much. Oh, and I forgot to have you guys introduce yourselves. I skipped right past that? Sorry. I'm here with my other hosts. We've got Mwangi and Haley.
Hey. They were listening to the previous episode, so they don't.
So yeah, they know who you are because you are.
Yeah, they
loyal
are fans
listeners,
and they know
so
us.
I didn't need to do that. Okay, good. Thanks, guys. You are so generous. I guess one of my questions is one of the reasons that we end up feeling disconnected from each other because we're also kind of a little bit more like in our own heads and focused on the me instead of the us. And is it that we end up actually kind of not all that interested in people around us, except for the funny videos they post on the internet? Like I wonder if we've at least to some degree lost our interest in genuine connection with others. If that's the case, then I think there are deep spiritual implications.
I don't know if it's lost. I think it is. I think if you go to a Bronco game, all of a sudden you're going to feel like everybody's with you, right? Once you leave the stadium, you're not going to be like, who's that dude that sat next to me? Like, I want to get his number and talk to him, right?
Yeah.
So spiritually...
Yeah, I was at a...
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was at a Nuggets game last night. Yeah, same thing, right? Like,
Oh, really? We were
was
there
around.
too. I didn't know you
Oh, you guys were at the Nuggets game?
Yeah, anyway, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Tough game.
Hey,
Tough game, guys.
yeah. Go
I think
Bulls,
spirituality
well
can...
done.
Yeah. Spiritually... In a spiritual community can feel similar. Again, like maybe you gather, you sing some songs, or you read a book, right? And I'm not negating the effect of that, right? But like I said, I'll go back to the Bronco game. If everybody's wearing orange at that game, you feel united, right? You feel like you're part of something. I think it's cool to be part of that thing. You don't feel like you need to be at the center of the thing. But again, my observation is that once you all take off your jerseys, you're not connected anymore, right? If you guys are not, if everybody took off their jerseys after that game, then you might as well be strangers because you didn't have that thing anymore that connected you. So spiritually, again, I think maybe you ask yourself, what's that jersey? So if I was not worshiping at this place, would I really want to talk to these people? You know what I'm saying? Right?
What's our Jesus jersey?
Yeah, I don't know. I think.
Good
So that's just my observation. Again, it's not negative in any way, but I think if we take off our jerseys, how do we view each other? When we put them on, how do we view each other? right? And then how do we view the opposition, right? Like,
Yeah.
Mike yesterday at the game, there's only a few Bulls fans, but they were cocky.
They were.
Very cocky.
Were.
You know, there's some teams that come in,
That's funny.
play with the Nuggets that are cocky. So like, how do you look at those guys and be like, you know, like, who are you?
Kobe White was also killing it. So I mean,
yeah, they had a reason to, so would you have felt worse? But anyway,
yeah.
you know, spiritually, individually, like, how do I fit in? And I'll say this again, is, you know, one of the reasons I like visiting big cities is I feel I can disappear. Like to me, it's therapeutic. It's therapeutic in the same way somebody will say, I love to go to the mountains, and like there's silence, and
There's an
I am
anonymity
alone.
in a big city.
I feel the same way in a big city because I am lost, right, in this sea of people, and so the people are the landscape to me. So, two, even maybe sometimes in our spiritual interactions, like where are we feeling united? Where are we feeling like we're blending in and not being an individual but part of the larger community? And then what's the in between? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and depending on the size of your, like, if we're talking about like worshiping communities or faith communities, once one of those reaches a certain size, it's pretty easy to blend in and kind of fade into the background, and you don't actually have to know anybody. You can kind of attend or be there. It's kind of like you're there for a performance. And actually, probably our church is big enough for that to be the case. I think that our people are pretty good at like reaching out and be like, "Hey, I haven't seen you before. What's your name? Like, I want to get to know you." But if you get in late enough and you leave early enough, you could have some anonymity, even in our community.
Is that generational? So Haley, if you had a bunch of folks in your generation, to Mike's point, if you all gathered in the space, and last episode, remember we were talking about phones and stuff like that, and talking and things like that. Like how your perspective on the phone thing we're talking about, and maybe in a layer of spirituality, would those same people, if they were in a big room together, talk to each other and interact and connect, or would be no different than anybody else? Like, what are your thoughts?
I don't know. It's tough to know. I think it depends on the situation. My first thought is concerts. And when you go to big concerts, at least, like touring acts, right? So like, top of my head is Noah Kahan, or like, Rainbow Kitten Surprise because I'm wearing their shirt or something like that. I've gone to their shows, and like Noah Kahan, for some reason I'm thinking about his right now, but I went to his show. He was at Mission Ballroom 2 years ago in February. So, and that was like right as his album Stick Season was starting. Like that's when it got big for the first time. Like people, like that was before he got nominated for a Grammy, but it was right at that cusp of like celebrity-esque feeling, right? So he sold that show out decently quickly, and I was excited to see him. Had been listening to him for a long time, and he consistently sold out in Denver anyway because it's acoustic singer-songwriter folk stuff that we eat up all day every day. And so I went there with a couple of my friends, and I love talking to people at concerts. Because it's like you're going to go see the same guy, like you're saying, like for like Broncos games, like you're all there to go see the same thing. And what interests me was, one, there's a lot of people younger than me, so like people like 16, 17-year-olds, X's on hands kind of a thing. But like one like common, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, oh my gosh. When you notice something.
Observation.
Like when multiple people notice something. Thank you. Observation. One common observation right now is like concert etiquette is just totally out the window. And so, especially with like young people, they just like are rude to people. They just like kind of don't really know what to do. Like these girls were like sitting on the floor on the GA floor, and like,
what?
Yeah, weird, right? And like we were like pretty close enough to the stage, and I'm small, so like if I find a little spot in GA, like, and I can have a window to see, like, I'm keeping that, you know? And granted, I know, like, GA moves around, right? Because there's bodies, it's not solid. But, like, they invited, like, these guys in and all this stuff. And, like, really close to the show, they, like, talked through the opener. Like, it was just, I don't know. I feel like there is this self-centeredness of, like, I'm only here to care about one thing. I don't really care about people around me. And even there were some friends that I went to a Rainbow Kitten surprise concert with, and we forgot sunscreen. It was at Red Rocks. And, like, we didn't need it for the show because it's after dark, but, like, you're waiting in line for a couple hours before to get good spots. And we didn't have sunscreen, and there was, like, people our age, like a little bit ahead of us, but they were coming out the line to, like, spray sunscreen on. And I was like, I'm going to go ask them if we can borrow it. Because Coloradans are nice about that thing, you know? Like, because we're decently outdoorsy people. So, like, I was going to go, and, like, these people that I was with, they stopped me. They were like, no.
I don't want cancer, though.
And I was like,
yeah.
I was like, for real. I was like, for what? Like, what are they going to do to me?
Yeah,
like, if they think I'm weird, they think, yeah. And if they think I'm weird, they think I'm weird.
Yeah.
They just say no. But, like, even if they think I'm weird, they might say yes. Like, just, like, let me borrow it, you know? And I think my generation is really, again, like I said a couple episodes ago, like, we're really caught up in what people think of us. Like, we don't want to be perceived as weird. But, like, we also want to be liked in the group that we're with. So, like those girls at that concert at Noah Khan were incredibly rude. And, like, and that was, like, kind of throughout the crowd. Like, there was a lot of rude people there. And it was not, it was a fun show, but it was not a fun crowd. Like, people were just really weird. Like, they're territorial. Where it's like, this guy owes me this concert, you know? And it's like, aren't we here to enjoy music? That's what I thought we were here for. And so I think there's a lot of entitlement, but also just a lot of, like, we're kind of trapped in our perception, like, other people's perception of us. And that gets worse the younger you go from me. Like, I'm around like youth a lot too. Not as much as Mike, but at least the youth that I see, they're very much, like, concerned with how people perceive them, and, like, they're afraid of being cringy. And it's like, I don't know, I try to set up kind of this idea that, like, just be who you are, and, like, being like, just being a person isn't cringe, you know? Like, and to put that, like, I guess in a spiritual context, like, if young people aren't finding a place to, like, be themselves, like, they aren't finding safe spiritual places. And concerts are very spiritual places for a lot of people. Religious or secular music, it doesn't matter. Like, they can be very spiritual places. And so when you start to set that up as not as a place to be perceived and to be judged, like, that doesn't allow people to fully experience what music can do for them. That was a long roundabout way. The initial question was about young people in a crowd, like, in a room together. I think some people are social enough to talk to each other. I like talking to people. I think sometimes people my age, if someone talks to them, they're happy to talk back, but they aren't going to initiate. I am in a role now where I'm very comfortable initiating. Like, I love talking to cashiers. I love talking to just people because I think it's important. But that's also being modeled for me a lot by an older congregation. So, I'm lucky in that way to just have that modeled and shown that, like, it's going to be fine. You know, like, you don't got to be scared of it. But yeah, for spiritual implications, it's just people need to find a safe place to do it. And we are very good at making places not comfortable for each other, I think, which is unfortunate.
Well, I got a chance to preach on this past Sunday, just a couple days ago. And one of the things that I mentioned is that we can get kind of self-centered, right? And I think one of the antidotes to that, one of the ways that we get out of our own heads and start to be able to take the perspective of other people is to actually find somebody to serve. That is to maybe look around, find one of the people who's vulnerable in our society and do something that makes their life better. That takes you out of the headspace of, like, okay, what's in my Amazon cart right now, and do I have enough to pay for it? You know, it takes you out of the headspace of, okay, what am I going to order on DoorDash? Or, you know, whatever it is, like, what's my score on Blockbust, whatever.
Yeah,
Blast. Thank you
Black
very
Blast.
much. Black Blast. I finally got that one. It's actually quite addictive. It's pretty fun. How do you get out of that? It takes intention, but it's only one, and that is to look around you, find somebody who needs something, and see if you can help with that thing. And maybe that thing is literally just being treated like another human being, just acknowledging their dignity as a fellow creature of the universe, of God, of whatever you want to call it.
And truly seeing
exactly.
them in that moment, right? Like, not just being like, oh, like, hi, how are you? Like, really, like, seeing them if you can. Like, it can be like, hi, how are you? But like, looking at them not just in like a passing by kind of like goodbye kind of way.
So another thing that's occurred to me as I was thinking about kind of the spiritual implications, the faith implications of this is that I think one of the reasons that we feel disconnected from each other and aren't as neighborly as we can be is because we maybe we feel like we actually don't need each other. And by that I mean, like, I know that we're not like homesteaders that live off the grid or anything. Like, I understand that like we are connected to a bigger society, but somebody mentioned the idea, I think it was you, Haley, like that village, right? In a previous episode, this idea of a village where a woman was so connected with everybody and she had her people and everybody just kind of provided things for each other. Beautiful, beautiful. But like, if I need a cup of sugar, I'm not going across the street to ask. I'm ordering it online and it comes to me. You know what I mean, right? Like, I don't order my groceries that much, but you can, right? Like, we don't need each other in the same way that maybe previous generations did. Like, I don't even need, you can just order it and it's going to show up maybe even in hours. It's wild. And that to me, there's a deeper truth that we are all connected and we all need each other. There's a deeper truth that, I talked previously about a rabbi that I got to talk with recently. His name is Rabbi Heilman. And he was saying that one of the most important things about the book of Genesis or the Torah, talking about the story of there being everyone coming from Adam, isn't the idea that like genetically we've all descended from maybe like one pair of people, but that like telling the story that we're all one family, that we're all the same. And no one is more royal than another. No one is like from worse stock than another, that we are all the same, all one family. And so I think when we fail to be neighborly or we fail to recognize our need for each other, we're also often failing to recognize kind of the humanity in each other and that we all do come from one place. Like it's just the one family. And so, and to me, I guess that's the ideal, is that we would be able to move back toward a thicker sense of neighborliness, something that's not kind of thin and flimsy and ephemeral and surface level, right? But something that's like, no, I'm actually interested in you because like I have to be, because we are all one.
Integral.
Yeah.
Just who we are.
I feel like I've been talking a lot. Let me stop talking.
No, that's cool. I like that a lot. Actually.
Yeah. I mean, you did use the word ideal, though, right? That's the ideal.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
In, where we are today, it could depend on the community you're in, but it's not ideal. Many times it's kind of like off the bat it's not even who's my neighbor, who's my enemy first. Let me figure out who my enemy is before I figure out who my friends are and put my enemies in check. And then once I do that, then I can figure out how to be neighborly. right?
Yeah.
And many messages can essentially stoke that, right? You say, well, you better watch out for so and so because they're about to do whatever, right? And so we can be fed things that keep us in fear. And when you're in fear, right? It's not that you're not necessarily looking for your friend. But first, you got to put your oxygen mask on. First, you got to defend yourself, right? And so if I'm fearful, my first instinct is like to defend and attack or do whatever. Once I'm not in fear anymore, and again, I'm just waxing here, is like maybe then I can have the chill time to now say, ooh, I want to hang out with so-and-so. I wonder if this, I want to challenge myself. But it's a lot easier to just say, sometimes to rest and say, well, either at least I'm not that or I'm doing this. And I think and it's not just today's climate, it's existed before. But I think what today's social media or information age shows is that we can now hype up a bunch of stuff real quick, right?
Yeah.
Or another way of looking at it, we can break the spirituality that was there like quick, right? And cause divisiveness in communities, right, with certain messaging. And so I think the ideal, right, like you're right, like we all are one. Now we could say we descended from one, but it sure as heck is not how we act, right? And I think some of our base instinct is to, again, find at least I'm not them, or figure out like who's trying to mess with me, and focus on that rather than even saying like what's actually nurturing me. Because yes, attacking what you feel is wrong or what you view as whatever a threat is important, but we're not hunter gatherers here, right?
Yeah,
we could chill for a minute and just be like, I think that's my take in the current situation we're in, at least in the United States.
Yeah, it seems like kind of what you're saying is stop viewing people as enemies because maybe they're not, like that. There's not a wolf coming to get you, even if you live on the western slope here in Colorado. You're still gonna be fine.
Yeah, because
we had wolves reintroduced here, and there's some controversy around that, folks. If you're listening,
Google that. Yeah, and maybe there is a wolf, but Google. Again, I come back to if we're wearing a Broncos jersey, somehow we feel united. But once you take it out, then we'll be like, well, where you live? Where do you go to church? Like, then it's like,
there's another identity to
well,
question.
now you're in my way trying to get down the escalator.
Yeah.
Or,
exactly.
Whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Now let's get in the parking lot.
Now I'm going to yell at you leaving the parking lot.
Now we've changed, right? Because you're trying to cut me off.
Yeah.
Or you're trying to run me over.
It's much easier to despise others than to, like as you said, like, we immediately ask, like, who's the enemy? And it's because... Well, maybe not because, but in a part of that is if we're asking who the enemy is first, we know who we're angry at, right? As you said. But then we don't even have to be kind to anybody else. Because the bar is on the floor. So, like, we can just be mean. And then anyone who we're not mean to, we'll take that as kindness. It's not even true kindness. I'm just not being an asshole. Okay? Like... and I think that comes out in a lot of people, in a lot of different ways. So, man, that's a heavy one. I don't.
It's real,
but it's very real.
When I think that maybe that's another like little lesson, like how do we be neighbors? What does that look like? It's getting to know someone well enough to understand that they're not your enemy, that they're not against you, that they that you have so much more in common than you imagined at first, that you're not the same, but you are together, and but that takes effort, that takes pulling yourself away from I don't know, this podcast or, whatever it is that has kind of got your attention away from the other. Mm-hmm. And then we end up imagining, I end up imagining sometimes like the worst in someone else. Like, even if it's like a genuine neighbor that I know, like, have you guys ever had like an imaginary conversation in your head? Like, oh man, they did the thing that I didn't like. If they do that again, I'm going to say this. And then they'll say that, but I'm going to be so quick and clever that I'm going to say this right back. And like, surely that can't be the way that God would want us to think of each other, right? Surely that's not the most neighborly way to be. But we do it. And I think every time I've had one of those imaginary conversations before the real conversation, and I'm kind of ready, right? I'm kind of like, oh yeah, just wait until they say this thing. Like, it always ends up actually being so, and like so much more filled with grace and more, like, no, you're a real person. You're not, a punching bag to knock down. You're a human that, has, experiences the same kinds of hurts and frustrations and joys and things that I do. Maybe that's part of the lesson is, when we put distance between each other, then it's easy, like you guys were saying, to dehumanize, demonize, whatever. But if we get closer, and I think that's what most faiths call us to do. Certainly, I believe that's what Jesus calls us to do. To get close to each other, then you can't see people as enemies. Certainly not as easily. Especially if you're praying for them already, right? Like, already praying for this neighbor, already praying for this person, and much, much harder to think of them as evil or subhuman.
Yes.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so I guess coming back to spirituality, perhaps maybe, again, your society may be asking you who's your enemy, right? Spirituality is asking who's your friend. Mm-hmm. So if I'm concerned about my enemy, to Haley's point, then that's my primary objective. Then I'm not going to feel like I have anything else to do but attack. And to be honest, some of these enemies are made up, and so they never go away. In some sense, right? They're some of them are social concepts, and it's kind of like that never goes away. So you're so consumed by it, maybe as opposed to maybe asking who's your friend first. Maybe less so like who's my enemy. That can take you in different places.
Yeah.
I like that a lot more.
That's good. Well, any other kind of practical, like, what does it mean from a faith perspective to be a neighbor? What are the implications of trying to be better neighbors with each other? Anything else that kind of rises to the surface?
I don't know. If we're taking it biblical, Jesus calls us to be neighbors. That's it.
Well, as always, we always want to hear from you guys, and you'll know how to do that as you listen to the outro. We don't have whatever that wraps up our podcast. All the ways to connect. So thanks for sticking with us on the "Won't You Be My Neighbor" conversation. And that, I guess my parting encouragement would be just take a look around your neighborhood and maybe notice that person who just needs a word. One of my neighbors has a chronic illness and got laid off from her job, and now is trying to do some like that whole like disability and unemployment thing. And turns out that like when you fire all the employees that take care of that kind of thing, it makes it really hard for folks with MS to figure out the next step. Thanks for that, people who've been firing everyone. She's
not your enemy.
Look around.
She's not.
Yeah. I I'm telling you guys,
Yeah.
Robin is not your enemy. She's awesome. Maybe you have a Robin in your neighborhood that you can reach out to and just have a kind conversation so that she or he or they feel less alone. So have a good one, everybody.
Guys, be good.
Bye-bye.
The Tapestry podcast is produced by Stephen Bailey. Original music was scored by Taylor Martin. Our hosts are Haley Bird, Wangi Ndonga, and me, Mike Orr. Special thanks to Lauren Richmond Jr. and Resonate Media. You can learn more about Tapestry and join the conversation on our Discord channel at tapestrytalk.org. Thanks for joining us.